Hi, this is Joe again with another movie review, and for this video, I'm going to be discussing the pretty damn cold out with the snow and the ice and everything else in here in New York. So I'm going to do a baseball movie to maybe warm things up a little bit. And I'm going to be discussing the 1992 baseball film, The Babe, starring, starring John Goodman, Kelly McGillis, Trini Averando. And this movie is actually the third different Babe Ruth movie that came down the pike. The first one came out, I think it came out in the 1940s, 1950s, with it's called The Babe Ruth Story, starring Ram Bendix, which is still considered one of the worst baseball movies. Then the year before this movie came out, there was a Babe Ruth TV movie, which I saw maybe 2 seconds of it, and then that was it. And this movie came out in 1992, and the funny thing is about 1992 was that you had not one, not two, but 3 different baseball movies that came out that year, which is, I think, it's the most I've ever seen. The baseball movies came out all in the same year, because earlier you had League of Their Own, we had the Babe Ruth movie. I think Babe Ruth came out first, and then you had League of Their Own, and then towards the end of the year, like in September, you had Mr. Baseball with Tom Selleck, which I might or might not review down the pike. But getting back to the Babe, this was John Goodman from the Roseanne Show as the title character, and I felt he did a pretty good job in the role. The problem with playing what we call a baseball legend, as people was, is the fact that they're always complaining that the actor didn't capture the spirit of the actual person, which is what kind of criticism was for Gary Cooper in when he played Lou Gehrig in Pride of the Yankees, because he got the same kind of criticism because he was kind of like awkward at times, kind of like playing like a lame character, or kind of like a geeky version of Lou Gehrig, kind of playing like he was a geek. In the case of John Goodman, you can understand the argument when John Goodman played Babe Ruth. You can play him like kind of, and there were times in the movie when I first saw it, that made Babe Ruth kind of like an idiot, and that that really bothered the hell out of me. When I first, especially in the beginning of the movie, when he first got signed by the Red Sox, he's going, "Oh, I like to hit home runs." And he's chewing gum, and really, kind of like over the top. But Babe Ruth wasn't over the top character, so you might let it go. But as soon as the movie went on, he was acting less and less like a 5-year-old, and more like an adult towards the end of the movie. But he's still kind of a little bit of a dummy, a little bit. More like a naive guy. Of course, when the movie starts off with Babe Ruth as a little kid, when his parents dropped him off at St. Mary's Reform School for Boys. Now, the reason for that was because Babe Ruth was, when he was a little kid, like 5, 6, 7 years old, he was a real hell. He was smoking, he was always chewing tobacco already at that age, and he was doing rocks at cops, and at one point he refused to go to school, and his parents declared him incorrigible. And so, they dumped him off at St. Mary's, which was kind of like a reform school / orphanage. And his parents never visited him, they just dumped him off at St. Mary's, and never saw him again, never bothered with him anymore. And the other kids don't, at the time, well, according to Ken Burns' baseball series, which I previously reviewed, they called him nigger lips. That's how they used to taunt him with. They always used to make fun of him because he was so, awkward looking. Particularly when he was a kid, because of his frame, because he was big up here and he had like a tiny legs and everything else. So they used to taunt him all the time, make fun of him, until when the priest who ran the school brother Matthias saw something in him and started playing baseball with him. And of course, Babe Ruth had big power even then, and it was so good that he was on the varsity team when he was like 10 years old. He was on the varsity team already, not the junior varsity. So he got scouted by the local minor league baseball team, which was called the Baltimore Orioles, and they signed him to a contract, and then of course they sold him to the Red Sox. So they go into all that stuff in the beginning part of the film, and then his first thing in Boston, he met Trini Alvarado, who, those of you who don't know, who played Bette Midler's daughter in the movie Stella, which I previously reviewed, and this is like the first movie that I've seen her in since then, and she played Babe Ruth's first wife, and they got married real young. But the problem was, of course, Babe Ruth was constantly womanizing, and there was one particular scene I remember very well when they were on a train, because they figured that if she stayed with him, he wouldn't womanize so much. And says, "What are you?" And she called him incorrigible, and he got upset over that because that's what his parents called him, incorrigible. And of course, they were separated, and then of course they had a scene where she died in a house fire with a guy that she was shacking up with. And then of course he eventually married his mistress, who was played by Kelly McGillis, from Top Gun, who previously starred in Top Gun, and she played Claire Ruth. And of course, one of the scenes in the movie is that they wanted to sue a candy company for making the Baby Ruth candy bars because of using his name. The reason why the candy company actually won that lawsuit was because Ruth is the daughter of the owner of the candy company. So that's how they got away from winning that lawsuit. But of course, he sold him when he was hit the 60 home runs in 1927, and how he got a famous incident when he went into the stands and was screaming "You all yellow" to the fans because he went to a slump and the fans were booing him, and he called all the fans "You all yellow," and how he got into a fight with his manager Miller Huggins. And of course, then when Miller Huggins died, he got into a fight with his new manager Joe McCarthy, and he didn't like him, and he wanted to become manager himself. But before that sequence, which I skipped over, was they did go into the bit with the rivalry between himself and Lou Gehrig. And the reason for that was that Lou Gehrig was always such a good family man and good mama's boy, pretty much, and Babe Ruth never had that. So Babe Ruth was jealous of Gehrig that he has a stable family background, and Babe Ruth never did. And the Babe Ruth was wild and everything else, and Lou Gehrig never was. So Babe Ruth was jealous of that stuff, and he would got into an argument, and for a long time, if you see some of the old news clips of Babe Ruth and Lou Gehrig, when Gehrig would hit a home run, Babe Ruth never shook his hand. Well, in a lot of those clips, he never bothered with him. He never shook his hand. And I also remember for years after that, when particularly for the 27 Yankee team, every time when they would sign a ball, Babe Ruth had to sign his name before Lou Gehrig did, or sign on a baseball or any other memorabilia, because if Gehrig signed, let's say, a bat or a ball or a jersey or a team picture, Babe Ruth would never sign it. That's how angry he was with Gehrig. If Gehrig signed let's say a baseball, before Babe Ruth did, Babe Ruth would never sign it. That's how much of a hatred there was between the two guys, and the movie goes into that. And of course, what happens when Babe Ruth was at the end of his career, he wanted to be manager of the Yankees. Because he felt he would make a good manager. But unfortunately, he was never given a chance because Colonel Rupert who is now in the Hall of Fame as in the owner's ring of the Hall of Fame, says to him, "How can you manage other players if you can't even manage yourself?" And of course, there was a myth that went around because he drank and he caroused and he flew around with a whole bunch of women. He cheated on his, particularly on his first wife. So how can you manage other players if you can't manage yourself? And he said, "Well, if you're not going to make me manager, release me." And there was a scene in the film. Even though I don't think that was true, because as soon as what happened was Babe Ruth went on a tour in Japan with an all-star team of all-stars to play a team of all-stars in Japan, and as soon as he came back to the States after the tour, that's when he found out the Yankees were not going to resign him, and they were going to release him. They were going to let him go. So that's what happened in reality. But in the movie, he said, "Oh, if you're not going to make me manager of the Yankees, release me." Because the MLB Network just aired this movie, so that's why I'm doing a review now, because I just saw the problem now. So he signed with the Boston Braves, not the Milwaukee Braves, not the Atlanta Braves, but Boston Braves, because that's where they were started first. And they gave him the big promise of making him a manager, which of course they never did. They wanted to use him to draw people to see the Boston Braves. And of course, when he found out that he was, they were just using him to draw people to Boston, and he hit, the last home run. As soon as he hit the last home run, on a 7-14, he just walked off the field, and that's it. Which I didn't really like the ending either. What happened was the last game he played, which was in Forbes Field in Pittsburgh, he had 3 home runs, number 7-12, 7-13, and 7-14, and that was it. That was the end of his career, and that was it. And that's pretty much how the movie ended. And a fact on the screen, he was one of the first players inducted into the Baseball Hall of Fame class in 1936. Which he was one of the first players elected to the Hall of Fame, but he didn't have the induction ceremony until 1939. Then he died of cancer in 1948 at the age of 53, and that's it. I mean, they flashed out on the screen. But what would have been interesting was that if he had actually went through all that, went through going to the Hall of Fame and reenacting the Hall of Fame speech, and then going through his illness. That would have been interesting to see in the film, with him being diagnosed with throat cancer, and then him having the operation and having him make the famous speech in Yankee Stadium, and Babe Ruth Day in Yankee Stadium, and then of course going to Old Timers Day, the very first Old Timers Day in Yankee Stadium in 1948, celebrating the 25th anniversary of Yankee Stadium, and him being there, and the Yankees retiring his uniform, which was the second uniform number actually retired, believe it or not. Babe Ruth's uniform number was not the first uniform number retired in Major League Baseball history. The first number retired was Lou Gehrig's number, because he was dying of cancer. Also would have been not dying of cancer, he was dying of ALS. But it would have been interesting if they put that into the movie. Well, I know they redid that in Prior to the Yankees when Babe Ruth came back with Lou Gehrig in Prior to the Yankees. But it would have been nice if they redid that scene in the Babe movie. But unfortunately, they didn't do that. I would have liked it much better if they put all that stuff in there, with him being sick, him coming back and making up with Lou Gehrig. Even if a scene that never actually happened, with him when Babe Ruth visiting Gehrig, and says, "Let's make up. Let's make up. Let's forgive each other for what happened when we were playing together. I forgive you. You forgive me." And because I wanted to clean up, have a clean slate and everything else with each other. Unfortunately, you had to do this for us to clean the slate. It would have been interesting if they did that in the Babe Ruth movie. And of course, him going to the Hall of Fame, making his Hall of Fame speech, and of course dying of cancer. They should put, but if they did all that stuff, the movie would have been like a half hour longer, at least a half hour longer, and because it was already a 2-hour movie at that point. But if they did that, it would have been a half hour longer film at least, and but in the long run, it would have been much better, and would have liked it much better. I mean, I'm not saying what they did wasn't bad. I liked what they did, but the movie could have been better. I thought the movie The Babe could have been a hell of a lot better than what they did. Same thing with the Jackie Robinson movie, 42. The thing that bothered me with those two movies, the two Jackie Robinson films, they're only focused on his first year in the major leagues, and not the rest of his career. If they had done that, I would like those movies better as well. Unfortunately, they only focused on the first year. They should have done more than the 1 year. So another review of the movie The Babe. Please click on below. Feel free to comment. Feel free to rate it. Please subscribe to my channel, and please forward this video onto your Facebook pages. And also, one more thing, you can also check out my videos on rivalry.com as well as YouTube. So if you want to see, maybe possibly see some of my older videos, you can not only check out my YouTube channel, but you can look on rivalry.com, which links you to my videos on YouTube. Because I made a deal with the Rally reviewer, Chris Lee Moore, and he is helping me promote my videos as well on his website. And also, you can check out his content as well on his site as well. He does a great job with his reviews, his TV trash videos as well. And even though he doesn't do movies like I have, I mostly do movies. He does bad television shows. And also, you can check out his videos. Plus, you can also check out my video and all of his other content on his website as well at rivalry.com. That's ROWDY, thec.com. Check it out. You can see he's starting to post my older videos, and you can also check out his stuff as well. Thanks for watching, and catch you next time.